Alright, YouTube, what's going on? It's Kieran Rodriguez here. I'm back with another good video for y'all today. I wanted to make this how should I say, this video to criticize Mr. Canelo Alvarez of why Mr. Canelo Alvarez never wanted Undisputed at all. So yeah, let's get right to it. Saul Canelo Alvarez, he is out of Guadalajara, Jalisco, Mexico. He is 5'8" with a 70-foot and a half arm reach. Canelo is, as of now, currently the unified WBC, WBA, WBO world super middleweight world champion. He had recently had stopped talks with or he had lost, negotiation talks with IBF super middleweight world champion Caleb Sweet Hands Plant, for those of you that don't know. And as of now, Canelo, he's just pretty much on the verge of either fighting Dmitry Bivol or Artur Beterbiev. And, wherever that may go, that will probably go into fighting, hopefully, I don't know. I mean, honestly, Canelo, he can easily work on getting 175 out the way, because those are two, possible easy fights that he can get done, that he could possibly win. But other than that, Canelo, he has plenty of options. He doesn't really need to, be held back with anything. But as far as everything else goes, I'm just gonna make the video here to say why Canelo Alvarez never wanted Undisputed at all. And we're going to start off from the very beginning, so let's get right to it. So, for those of you that don't know, when Canelo came up through his little Mexican little reign after whooping a bunch of unknown Mexicans back in his day, Canelo was just, like your typical, type of fighter that was on the come up. Oh, and actually, it's kind of funny, because of the two draws that Canelo has in his career, he never tended to rematch them or even settle the score, off those draws. Hence why boxing needs to get rid of draws in the sport. There needs to be like an extra round policy. But nah, he never even decided to, even try to, re-challenge any of the Mexican, level competition that he wanted to fight. Basically, he went the Julio Cesar Chavez route, fought a bunch of bums, unknown guys that people don't even know who the hell they are. And then his very first, semi-world title appearance was against Gabriel Martinez, knocked him out, he stopped him. And then he went in a very close split decision victory over Francisco Villanueva. And then, these are just like a bunch of bums that I don't really know. So let's just go off to the, Matthew Hatton, fight, because this is really like the cream of the crop of where his his hype train went. Also, by the way, Jose Miguel Cotto's brother almost knocked up Canelo, so it kind of shows that Canelo, he was pretty much vulnerable that fight himself too. But no, ever since the Matthew Hatton fight, this is the title this is the time when the WBC super welterweight title was available, and Matthew Hatton was an unranked opponent that Canelo was given by the WBC to fight for the belt anyway. So, that fight obviously went to a unanimous decision, and Canelo did his thing. He beat the shit out of him all 12 rounds, got his little WBC super welterweight title. And remind you, the three other guys that were gunning for him at the time was Jamal Charlo, Demetrius Andrade, and I believe that's about it. Well, yeah, there's John Jackson, and then there was J-Rock, there was Erickson Lubin. So those guys were on the come up, wanting to, wanting to defeat Canelo. And that could have easily been made back in the day, definitely. Because even though Lubin, he's like 5 years younger from Jermell Charlo. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, he's 5 or 4 years younger from Jermell Charlo. Yeah, 5. Yeah, 5 years younger because we're technically like about the same age. But yeah, Lubin could have easily faced Canelo back in the day. But then again, I don't know when he started his career, so I don't know because he could have. Yeah, Lubin could have easily faced Canelo. On the come up. Canelo wasn't even. I mean, yeah, at this time Canelo was like 42-0 when he had his belt, leading up to a Floyd Mayweather fight. But ever since then, he fought a bunch of bums. He beat up Ryan Rhodes, Alfonso Gomez, like a nobody, a washed up Kermit Cintron, a washed up Shane Mosley, a non 154 pounder, yeah, a 147 pounder Josecito Lopez, a guy that wasn't even supposed to fight at 154. He took a risk in fighting Canelo, got stopped, and then his first real test before his reign got defeated by Floyd Mayweather. He fought undefeated Austin Trout, very slick southpaw, and I believe he unified with Trout. Yep, and I actually remember that because I believe Trout had taken the WBA title away from Miguel Cotto, if I'm not mistaken. And oh, by the way, Trout is fighting next week, right? Yeah, Trout, he's fighting next weekend, just to let y'all know. But no, I believe before he fought Canelo, yeah, he won the title from Miguel Cotto. So yeah, that was very interesting because Trout, he had such a really good, up and coming career, and I mean, I give him nothing but respect because he's won multiple world titles, or I believe he only won like the WBA. Yeah, just a WBA title, as far as I know. Yeah, he's only won the WBA, so he's held that for quite a long time. He made his defense against Miguel Cotto, and then he unified with Canelo. So Canelo, he had 2 belts at the time when he went to war with Austin Trout, and then he got his ass beat by Floyd Mayweather. And get this, the 2 other champions at the time that had the WBO and the IBF was Demetrius Andrade. He was soon to get the W. Actually, hold on. Let me just go to Andrade Boxrec, because that'll explain it all, right? Because I'm not gonna cap out here, because I'm smart and I'm not going to be stupid. But we could easily go find that, because we all know what Andrew was doing at 154. He was whooping everybody's asses. And we'll see when he got his first world title. There we go. He was a world champion at this time, back in 2013, when Canelo unified with Austin Trout. So he was the WBO world champion at this moment. And then, from 2013 leading up to 2017, he then caught the WBA super welterweight title, and then leading up to the end of 2017, leading into 2018, that's when he went to go get the WBO middleweight title. So what did Canelo do? He straight up ducked Andrade that first time at 154, because he could have easily unified to go get the WBO and the IBF from Andrade and Charlo, or Jermell Charlo, just to be exact. No, actually, Jermall Charlo. I'm sorry. Jermall Charlo had the IBF, and Jermell Charlo was on his way to get the WBC because he was Canelo's mandatory or soon to be mandatory with him. So Canelo Alvarez did not want smoke with the Charlo brothers or Andrade. So he got the fuck up out of there when he got his ass beat by Floyd Mayweather, because it'll show right here. After Floyd Mayweather, he had a couple more fights. He fought the bum Alfredo Angulo, and then he went to war with Lara that almost defeated him, knocked out James Kirkland, and then he quickly moved all the way back up to middleweight, or he moved up to middleweight to avoid Charlo and Andrade, or Charlo brothers and Andrade, but most importantly Jermall Charlo. So Floyd Mayweather could have easily unified 154 to become undisputed, which I don't understand why he did not do that. I kind of felt like Floyd Mayweather, he made kind of like a pathetic effort to not unify all the belts at 154, but that's another conversation that I could have on the channel another day. But ever since then, he went up to 160. He made his own little weight class, Canelo weight, fighting at 155. And then once he fought, Miguel Cotto, a washed up version of him, he beat him for the vacant WBC World Middleweight title. Which I kind of felt like if that fight was like in Miguel Cotto's prime, he definitely would have given, Canelo problems. He probably would have stopped Canelo. I'm just being honest. If Miguel Cotto did that to Canelo, even out of his prime, and stopped him, that would be such a good victory. But, I'm going to be realistic about Canelo's skills. He is a good fighter. And I mean, I want him to fight the best, but I personally would believe that a prime version of Cotto would give Canelo way too many problems, because Cotto's not just your come forward fighter. He's a slick fighter that knows how to hit you, and he makes sure that he outpaces you in a fight when he's about to hurt you. And that's what Cotto likes to do. He's a very defensive pressure fighter, and that's what I like about Cotto, because a lot of people don't see that out of him because they don't actually watch the fundamentals that Cotto brings to his fights. And that's what I like out of Cotto. And I think if this fight between Canelo and Cotto happened like when Cotto, Canelo was still on the come up, but I mean, let's just say if Canelo was in contender status and he was in the prime of his career, which I mean, Canelo could have easily fought Cotto, back in, well, actually no, Canelo, he was at 154, and Cotto, he was at 147. He was trying to settle business over there. So, I mean, yeah, that fight definitely wouldn't have happened politically, but I mean, in retrospect, if it wanted to be, if people wanted that fight to be made, where Canelo was this new fast rising young star to come into the game, I definitely would have liked to see Cotto and Canelo fight if Cotto was able to catch Canelo in his prime. And I definitely would have favored Cotto in that fight. But either way, it still would have been a good, fair, clean fight that I would give Canelo credit for beating. But that's the same thing with Shane Mosley. I don't understand why he fought Shane Mosley out of his prime, because it made no sense. Because if I'm Canelo, what the hell am I gaining from this? I'm not gaining other than just a title, and I'm just beating a guy that, he's not as quick and he's not as fluid as me. But either way, you can't, doubt veterans. Veterans have defeated young fighters before. So, this is like semi-credit as far as what the win goes. But ever since then, he beat up Amir Chin Khan, or Pussy Khan, and then he beat up Liam Trash Smith. He stopped him. He had 2 fights at middleweight, and then he went back down to 154. He only went back to 154 once to beat up Liam Smith. I have no clue why the hell he did that. I want to say he was avoiding Charlo at the time, because Charlo was going to fight him sometime in the future, and then Canelo still wanted to duck him, but you went down to 154 to just get a belt, and then you left. Yeah, that doesn't make any goddamn sense, because Andrade, I know Andrade, he vacated his belt at one point. I guess he missed weight or some shit. I'm not too sure, but I guess he caught the WBO, and then he vacated. He fought Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., and then ever since then, he went back up to 160 to go fight Triple G, because he had the WBC, so he unified with Triple G to pick up the WBA and the IBF. Oh, I know why he got the 154 belt, because Andrade, he moved up to 160 to go get the WBO, because him and Billy Joe Saunders, they were gonna fight each other at 160 for the WBO. And I remember Billy Joe, he had the WBO, but then he lost it due to some, I think, cheating bullshit that he got into with steroids. And then Demetrius Andrade got the WBO instead, and then he stayed there at 160. So I think this is at the time when Andrade was staying at middleweight. So he beat Triple G in the second fight. The first fight was bullshit. Triple G definitely had won that fight, but very weird fight. Didn't make any sense. But yeah, he had all three, all three belts, or actually no, he had two belts. Yeah, it was the IBF. Oh yeah, and I remember the IBF was, I believe it got stripped by Triple G, right? Yeah, because it says right here he didn't get the IBF, so whoever had the IBF at the time was I know Jamal Charlo was his mandatory ever since 2018, so oh, I know why. Triple G had the IBF shortly after it was taken away, so that's when him and yeah, Danny Jacobs had it. Yeah, I got you. Yep, I got you. Danny Jacobs won it because he fought Derevyanchenko, and then Triple G fought Derevyanchenko to regain the IBF as well. So that's when he fought bullshit Rocky Fielding. So he decided to duck Charlo again from one division, get the WBA, and then go back down to 160. And then he basically fought Danny Jacobs, had three belts. He could have easily unified 160, and he could have done the same thing at 154 if you look at it right here. Because after he had beat, after he had beat Austin Trout, he could have easily unified with Charlo and Andrade that had the belts at 154, and then he could have done it at 160, and he ducked Demetrius Andrade for Undisputed at 160, and that was Canelo's biggest payday. All these Canelo fan dick riders want to say, oh, Demetrius Andrade, he want payday. More like Canelo, he ducked a payday. He ducking payday because Canelo, he's a bitch. So yeah, that made all the sense in the world for why Canelo avoided Charlo and Andrade this whole entire time, because he could have been undisputed in four different divisions. Do you guys know how difficult that is, especially in the political world in boxing? If boxing was set up like the NBA or like an Olympic style league where if you become a champion you have to automatically unify your belt. You can't just keep the belt. You have to keep the cycle rolling. If boxing was like that, dude, the sport would be beautiful every fucking day. You see men and women thriving, and to me, I would personally like it because it would make all the sense in the world to have that. Because one, you get rid of sanctioning bodies. Two, you have all the proceeds going towards the fighters and the teams. I mean, if anything, the only thing that a fighter really needs is just a lawyer and a trainer. You shouldn't need no goddamn manager or a fucking promoter. Boxing needs to be marketized in a centralized organization, so that way there's pure representation for the fighters. So that way every fighter fights on a clean 100% basis, and you're always fighting the best to make it to the top. And that's how it should be, because boxing should be organized like a league, because that's what you get into. It's a fight league. That's how the sport of boxing should be. But that's in for another conversation, or that should be saved for another conversation. But either way, ever since Canelo had ducked Charlo for the past 2 years of the middleweight era, he then went off to avoid Charlo, because he had Charlo, he had been waiting for Canelo to give him his opportunity. Canelo didn't want to give it to him, so Canelo said, fuck it, I already had what I had. And he basically ducked Charlo and Andrade at 160, went after Sergey Kovalev, got a bullshit title, the WBO light heavyweight title, and he knocked his ass out. A Sergey Kovalev that was out of shape, not even in his prime. He was pretty much over the hill anyway. And then he, got out of that division to go after David Benavidez' title that was lost on the scale at 168, to go get the WBC and the WBA from Calum Shit Smith. Beat his ass, and then he requested a bum by the name of Avni Yildirim which Yildirim was not even ranked at all by any WBC sanctioning body, commission. And the WBC voted on it, and they allowed it to happen, which is absolutely disgraceful and absolutely disgusting. There should be massive charges being placed on that. Yeah, definitely legally. I'm not kidding when I say that. There needs to be legal repercussions for that. That was everyone's waste of time and waste of fucking money to go to that fight. And then, as of recently, he stopped Billy Ho Saunders to get the third belt out of 4 for the WBO with his WBC and WBA. So now, Canelo is trying to get the IBF with Caleb Plant, which I don't see this asshole ever getting it, because this piece of shit diva, yeah, I called him a fucking diva. He's not a... See, the difference between a diva and a superstar is that a superstar has to give the fans what they want, but a diva doesn't have to do that for their fans. A diva bitches and complains to their fans, and then they shit on their fans. So Canelo Alvarez, ever since this whole entire video that I started with, he's been shitting and disrespecting his own audience. I'm just bringing in the facts. I don't care either way. I think Canelo Alvarez has all the skills in the world to beat a lot of top level guys, but for all you Mexican dick riders that have been dick riding Canelo for quite the longest, it pretty much shows your worth as a boxing fan, that you guys don't give a fuck about boxing. You just give a fuck about political correctness in the sport. So whether that means that Canelo Alvarez fights another trash bum in his next couple fights, you're okay with it, because you'll justify it to say that it's perfectly fine that Canelo fights a bum, because he already fought the quote-unquote best fighters, but the best fighters out of the weakest links, out of his own division. So he's fighting the greatest duckers in his own division. He's fighting guys that are not even good fighters. He's fighting guys that probably had a title or have a title where he knows he could automatically beat them. So that's what Canelo's doing. He's a king of all duckers. He's not the king of all fighters. Because if he was, he would have gotten all these names that I've mentioned. And, I would give him nothing but, love and respect. Because, Canelo, he has that potential to, be the greatest in the world. He could have easily done that, but he decided not to. He kept cherry picking the entire time. And he never wanted to call out Charles' name. He never called out Andrade's name. Shit. He never wanted to face any of those killers at 154. He never wanted to, take out J-Rock, take out Erickson Lubin, get Terrell Gachet out of the way. I mean, do you realize how much money Canelo could have made in those fights? Canelo would have been a star at 154. And I mean, if he was battle-tested for all those fights leading up to a Floyd-Mayweather fight, you realize how much experience Canelo would have gotten from those fights? From guys that give him slick competition, give him really difficult problems in the ring. Canelo would have been a lot better prepared for a Floyd Mayweather. But no, he fought a bunch of Mexican bums, similar to what British people do. They're fighting a bunch of bums before they step it up at the world level. And once they make it to the world level, they get their asses beat. They get exposed. They don't have these skills like many people say they do. They just have these one-trick pony or these one or two-dimensional fighting styles that eventually gets themselves exposed in the fight for them to get either knocked out or to get brutally embarrassed. And that's what happens to guys like Canelo Alvarez. He did not want to, accept defeat when defeat was put in front of him. And I mean, he's almost got stopped multiple times. He almost got stopped by Jose Miguel Cotto, Miguel Cotto's brother. Shit, he almost got stopped by Austin Trout. Austin Trout was hitting him with some mean-ass shots. And, Canelo, he got shook up. But I mean, don't forget, Canelo has also cheated as well too, so maybe that's why he's able to take all these shots, because he's also juicing up, he's also juicing up on steroids. And before I close it off with the Caleb Plant situation and where Canelo will probably go for the rest of his career, It's just so obvious to see that Canelo, he's a piece of shit, man. He did not want to hold his end of the bargain with anyone. Oscar De La Hoya obviously wanted to make all the best fights with Canelo, and Canelo wanted to basically dick ride, the cherry picking train with DAZN and Matchroom, and then he tried to abuse Golden Boy with it, and then he tried to basically rob the bank. And I'm just surprised that Oscar De La Hoya did not tell Canelo sooner, like, hey, I'm not going to pay you all this money if you're going to be fighting bums. You have to be fighting some top-level competition. And I'm happy that PBC and Al Heyman, told Canelo leading up to the Caleb Plant, contract negotiations that, look, we're not going to fuck around. We're going to be giving you what you want, but we're not going to give you a easy way out. And that's what Canelo did not want to do. He did not want to go through a hard route of defeating Caleb Plant, and then if he ends up losing to Plant or he ends up winning against Plant, he still has to face David Benavidez and Jamal Charlo. Because within that contract, it did say, or it was confirmed to have been said, that if Caleb Plant is defeated, Canelo Alvarez has to face David Benavidez and Jamal Charlo. And Canelo, he straight up didn't want to do that, because he was like, nah, man, I don't want to have multiple fights. Don't you know how all these people were trying to say, oh, PBC and Al Heyman's trying to trap Canelo for all these multiple fights? No, Canelo said with his own fucking words, the 3 fights I want is Caleb Plant, Jamal Charlo, and David Benavidez. But, it's quite contradictory, because Canelo did say in the past, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't he say Jamal Charlo is a boring fighter? Who has he fought to get up to a fighter like me? Didn't Canelo say something like that? I could be wrong, but Canelo did say some very disrespectful shit to Charlo, leading up to, this contract negotiation of him saying, oh, now I want Jamal Charlo. Why? Because he looked bad in one fight against Montiel, knowing that he's never like that all the time. So I'm pretty sure if Charlo came after you in his next fight, I'm pretty sure Charlo is not going to be the same fighter he once was. He's probably going to come back as the same fighter that he did against Brandon Adams and Sergey Derevyanchenko. Because when Jamal Charlo performed at that level, Canelo cannot beat the shit out of him. Canelo would get exposed. He get killed by Jamal's jab, and especially by David Benavidez's jab. They would just hard pressure him with range, and Canelo, he's going to lose psychologically and mentally. And I'm pretty sure if Jamal Charlo, if he trains extremely hard for that fight, I guarantee you I will have Jamal Charlo stopping Canelo in 10 to 11 rounds. And I think where Canelo is weak, it's going to be to the body. Jamal needs to hard counter Canelo to the body, and Canelo, he's going to break the fuck down. Because yes, Canelo, he has a chin, he has good defensive IQ in the ring, but his feet is slow. That's a problem though. He gets hit way too much to allow his footwork to basically be the better disadvantage of him. So Canelo, how he manages to counter that is that he uses a lot of upper body strength to pressure fighters, so that way he can afford to get hit, but he's also hurting you in the process. So he has that Mike Tyson, come forward style. He uses a lot of offensive pressure to make you feel tired mentally and physically. And then when he hits you with some mean ass shit, it's gonna be a real hard ass night to try to keep Canelo away from you. And I would actually put Sean Porter next to him, because if him and Sean Porter were to fight each other, I would have Sean Porter beating him, because Sean Porter would, he would like to have that type of style being put in front of him, because he's that type of fighter where he would give Canelo the better end of that fight. But Canelo, he does not know how to shift motions when he's going toe-to-toe with somebody. He just likes a fight where someone's just basically toe-to-toe and you're fighting in the telephone. Yeah, pretty much, you're fighting in a telephone booth with that person. just being toe to toe. But Sean Porter, he doesn't do that. He moves around in the ring, but he also makes it hard for you to hit him inside the pocket in the ring. That's why Sean Porter is a very good fighter on the inside, but I mean on the outside, not the best fighter. Very similar to Canelo in that same manner. People may think I'm crazy, but that's just how I see Sean Porter. Sean Porter's style is very semi-similar to Canelo's style. So I think, the biggest issue with a Canelo Alvarez against a Jermall Charlo or a David Benavidez is that their pressure is conventionalized. They don't need to stay in the inside with you. They use their jab to keep you off the inside. But even if it's to the inside, Jermall Charlo's jab and David's jab is what's going to offset Canelo. And when he switches that, that 1-2 up to hit Canelo with like an uppercut or a check left hook or check right hook, that's what makes Canelo very weak in that fight, because Canelo cannot shift with motions. He likes to have a guy that stands in front of him and does like a rock'em sock'em type of style, and that's how Canelo ends up winning his fights against all these bums, because the style is tailor made for him to hit his opponents right in front of him, instead of having an opponent like Andrade or Charlo or Benavidez that could actually utilize their defensive motions in the ring, or use their defensive pressure motions to offset a fighter's how should I say, methodology of punches, to keep a fight right in the center of the ring. And that's what I like out of Charlo, Andrade, and Benavidez, because they do not keep the fight in the center of the ring. They're basically offsetting you with pressure, but they're keeping you outside of the ring to push you to the ropes, to make you feel off pressured, out of their punches. So they're basically using motions in the ring to keep you away from them. But on top of that, they're still coming toe to toe with you, but they're giving you that jab. That's what Canelo doesn't like. He doesn't like a guy that has slickness, but even if he's not slick, if he keeps Canelo off with that jab, Canelo is in big trouble. And also, Canelo's body is a bit suspect too, because it doesn't seem like he likes punches to the body that often, like many other fighters don't like to. But if that can be battle tested from David Benavidez or Jermall Charlo and Andrade, I will most likely guarantee that Canelo is going to get hurt in either of those fights. Which, I mean, Canelo's not going to fight Andrade, but, in the contract with Caleb Plant, it did say that David Benavidez and Jermall Charlo are going to be, your next two fights if you defeat Caleb Plant. And Canelo didn't want to do that because he was being a absolute piece of shit by saying, "Oh, I don't want to fight Charlo and Benavidez after Caleb Plant. Let me fight them whenever I want to fight." No, Al Heyman said, "Fuck you. You're not going to get away with some slick bullshit. You said you want Charlo and Benavidez, so here you go. If you're not going to fuck with that, then fuck off." That's basically how that's basically how Al Heyman said it to him. And, I'm not going to go so deep into the contract bullshit, but to simplify it, Canelo had everything he wanted. He had, all the pay-per-view rights, which means, he had, if not all of what the pay-per-view proceeds being paid off to him, which I'm pretty sure Caleb Plant isn't going to get any. But if he did, he probably was going to get, a small flat fee of pay-per-view buys. But he had, a shitload of money of pay-per-view being given to him. He had all Mexican right TV, TV coverage of his fight being broadcasted all over the country. And he had the Hennessy sponsorship behind him and other sponsors that I don't fucking know. So Canelo, he was going to get a shitload of money for this fight. Definitely close to $100 million, if not more, after the fight after the fight is over. So even after, if he won or lost to Caleb Plant, he was going to make a shitload of money either way. So Canelo was going to definitely make multi-billion-dollar contract deals after beating Caleb Plant, and then if he fights Charlo and Benavidez, that would have doubled and tripled the amount of money that he made. But obviously Canelo, he didn't want to do that because of what the contract itself was made out to be. He had, like, he had everything that he wanted, and Caleb Plant accepted it. He agreed to it. He agreed to the ring size. He agreed to all this bullshit. And the one thing that Canelo, came to, negotiation disagreements with Caleb Plant was that Canelo decided to make this weird ass rule with Caleb Plant to say that if I am injured or sick, you have to wait for me to come back, and you can't fight anyone else but me. So Caleb Plant is basically sitting on the shelf until Canelo comes back healthy for the fight. Which Caleb Plant is like, what the fuck? No, I'm not going to be waiting for you. I might as well just stay busy. Because he's not going to wait up on him, and the IBF is going to tell him, hey, you got to defend your belt, man, or else, this belt is going to get stripped. So it makes all the sense in the world why Caleb Plant would say no to that, because he's not going to, wait up on fucking Canelo if he gets sick or injured. But if it happened to Caleb Plant, Canelo wanted to get a replacement opponent, and Caleb Plant, he would miss on a huge-ass payday, $10 million or more, depending on how well the fight does. I'm pretty sure he would get way more money than that. I would hope so, because, you got to pay the man his, his greatest, or for his greatest, performances. But if Caleb Plant gets injured or sick, then Canelo has every right to get a replacement opponent that is not a champion, and that can replace him for Caleb Plant to get paid the same amount of money for the same amount of rates for that fight alone, which makes no sense whatsoever. And that's when PBC and Al Heyman were like, nah, fuck that shit. We're not going to be fucking with that. That's going to, that's not going to give us a good return on our investment. So, that was the smart thing for Al Heyman to say, nah, I'm not going to fucking do that shit. Because if Canelo were to get away with that, he would do the same thing to Charlo and Benavidez. He would be an absolute diva, and he would bitch and complain to the whole world of why he wants to have all these rules, blah, blah, blah. So that pretty much explains the monstrous attitude of Canelo. He thinks he rules the entire world with his, dumbass audience, and he thinks he's the best pound-for-pound king, knowing that you haven't fought pound-for-pound fighters, and you will never fight no more pound-for-pound fighters. Because you want to know why? And I'll tell you why, and I'm going to get up out of here. Canelo fears black fighters. I say it again. Canelo fears black American fighters and dangerous Mexican fighters. The reason why I say that is because Canelo, he's not Mexican. He's a dumb, pussified white person. And, before any of you Mexican retards come up in here to say, nah, Holmes, Mexicans, we're technically white people, blah, blah, blah. Nah, you guys are fucking brown. You guys have always been brown ever since the existence and the pre-existence of your lineage and heritage. Not one of you motherfuckers came out white. Most of y'all are pretty Indian. And I can pretty much prove that by looking at your heritage and seeing that the Aztecs were very close to South Americans and very close to American Indians in the North and the South. So miss me with that bullshit to say Mexicans are white. They are not white. They are brown. All Latin American cultures, per se, are technically brown. Yes, there are white people in the Spanish American Indian mixed heritage, but that is besides, the point, that the culture itself or the people itself is still brown. Because that's what most people would identify as. Not one person out of a country like, let's just say Argentina, is going to say, yeah, I'm white, but yet you look Indian as hell. You don't even look even close to being a European. You have brown skin. And I'm sure a good number of those people would say, yeah, we are brown. We are not really white. That's just a sub-tertiary or secondary, DNA racial structure of our own that was brought in through generational families. But either way, Latin American people are really not white. Yeah, they do have white Spaniard or Portuguese blood, which I'm not going to get into, but for the most part, yeah, it's mostly brown. Even with Uruguay and Argentina, those are like one of the semi-whitest countries in the world for Spanish American people, but those people are still technically brown. There's no way around it. I'm not going to sit here and say that, that's not that's not true. You know, most of them are brown. How people view Mexicans, from the US and from other nations, most people look at Mexicans as brown people. But in the sport of boxing, I'm always going to think of a Mexican being a brown person because he is going to look brown. 9 times out of 10, if I do run into a guy like Jaime Munguia or someone similar of him or someone by the likes of a Eric Morales or Juan Manuel Marquez, he's most likely going to be tan and brown. And I got mad love for Mexicans. This isn't no, racial bias. I got mad love for the Mexican people. I've had some friends that were Mexican in the past, and I think some of my family members are married to some Mexicans. I'm not too sure, but either way, like, to me personally, I love the Mexican people. They've treated me right, and I always treat them with open arms. This is coming from a black Puerto Rican myself, but nah, man, I got a lot of love for Mexican people, man. You guys are definitely, a part of my lifestyle, so I get along with them. They get along with me, but when it comes to the sport of boxing, I don't get along with the racist Mexican fans that dick ride guys like Canelo Alvarez and try to say that he's the best in the world when we all know Canelo Alvarez, he's not the best in the world. He's been fighting bum after bum, and he could have easily been working on his fourth division being undisputed. He could have easily overthrew, Clarissa Shields in that manner of being undisputed in four different weight divisions. He basically would be the greatest in the world for doing that, but unfortunately, Canelo, he didn't want to do that. He made all these excuses to say why he didn't want to unify. Oh, like Charlo and Andre, they're boring. Benavidez, he's Mexican. I'm not gonna fight him. What the fuck, nigga? Like, Mexican boxing, was only popular only because of Mexicans fighting each other. That's what brings in, most of that revenue of Mexican people to get into boxing, because the best fight the best out of that Mexican stable. So why the hell would you say that you would never fight David Benavidez because he's Mexican? Okay, but you would never say on national television that you're not going to fight no more black fighters. He would never say that, because you want to know why? Canelo knew if he said that, there would have been some racial tension there. And Canelo knew that from the very beginning, so he'd rather keep it with Mexican fighters, because he's like, no, I got respect for, all my Mexican brothers. Like, no, you don't. Because if you did, you would have, you would have given them the opportunity to give them that shine and to help out with their careers, to give them, the most money, possible to help out, your brethren that are on the come up. And then if you win, lose, or draw, or if you win or lose, then, you're still helping out, your Mexican, community. Because if David Benavidez did beat you and he styled on you and he brutalized you, it would still be, one good ass fight that Canelo Alvarez would remember for the rest of his life. And, there's no shame in losing. All the greats have lost. But Canelo Alvarez, to him, I think it's mainly due to one thing, and after I say it, I'm going to sign off out of here. I think it's due to Floyd Mayweather. I think Floyd Mayweather had psychologically defeated him, and ever since then, he does not want to lose to a fighter that would style on him, especially a black American fighter or someone that has a style that is a bad matchup for him. And I think Canelo knew that going into fighters like Austin Trout, Erislandy Lara, and definitely Triple G. And I'd say with Caleb Plant, which he's trying to make that fight, but I think Canelo, he knows damn well he could easily lose that fight. But I don't think Canelo is wanting to lose again, so he's going to try to cheat his way through to make himself, magically undefeated, where he's never going to lose another fight again, and then he's not going to ever, witness, defeat because it's like, you know, like what's also fucked up is like I personally believe Canelo, he also wanted to cheat in the Caleb Plant fight as well. You know, allegedly, because in the contract itself, there was no talks to say that VADA testing would be started, you know, as soon as the fight is made. So Caleb Plant, he was trying to make sure that everything was there to say, hey, look, I'll fight you on whatever bullshit you want, but the only thing that threw him off was like, I'm not gonna fucking fight you, you know, if you get injured and I have to fucking wait for you, and then you get to call the shots however you want to, and I'm sitting on the shelf. No. But then if Caleb Plant gets injured, Canelo can replace him, and he could get the same amount of money for the same amount of, you know, requests that he wants in. Nah, fuck that shit. So that's where his fans ended up lying to me. But on top of that, they've been lying to other people to say, oh, it was Caleb Plant's fault, when we all know it was all fucking Canelo's fault. And Canelo Alvarez has not said a damn word about Caleb Plant, because Caleb Plant backed it up with, you know, with like the paperwork to say Canelo Alvarez, he fucked up. And now Canelo Alvarez wants to, you know, return, yeah, he wants to, you know, resume back to, you know, renegotiations with Plant. And I think what's going to happen is that Plant is going to say fuck you to Canelo. If I'm Plant, I would, you know, I would wait for Canelo to leave 168, and then you have more belts, get them, you know, get them out the way. I say for now, Plant should end up fighting Jermall Charlo or fight Anthony Durrell, because Anthony Durrell did call out Caleb Plant as of recently. I personally would not mind that fight if Plant wants to defend against Anthony Durrell. I personally would like Charlo. I think Charlo is definitely going to be the higher value opponent. But if Anthony Durrell could be another high value opponent for Caleb Plant, I personally wouldn't mind that fight. Because what's going to happen is that David Benavidez, he's going to beat the shit out of Jose, you know, Uzcategui. And I believe David Benavidez, he's going to be next in line to face Caleb Plant, because that was a WBC title eliminator. But on top of that, the IBF is next, or the IBF has David Benavidez next in line to fight Caleb Plant, because David Benavidez is climbing on the IBF higher to get up to Caleb Plant. So I'm pretty sure the IBF can easily mandate him versus David Benavidez, or him and Charlo, or him and Durrell. So I think from here on out, Caleb Plant, he's going to be fighting some real tough opposition. So yeah, you know, like, we'll see what happens. I think Canelo is just going to go up to 175 and get undisputed there. I think that's, like, you know, that's going to be his end road of where things are. But that's pretty much it. Let me know what you guys think. Drop a like in the comment section. Hate, comment, subscribe. I don't give a shit. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you guys a lot. And I'll see y'all. Bye.